to record this no matter how I sound. You know, a lot of times I just like don't speak because, I know like when I just like want to be myself and just, speak, just talk, like sometimes I can sound like, what was his name? Boomhauer, I guess, off of the King of the Hill. Like, if y'all ever watched that, y'all know what I'm talking about. So a lot of times, like when I speak, I ram my words all together, just like and so when I speak now, like especially if I want to get something across, I have to really take my time. And so that's kind of like one reason why I speak so slow, or I'm very thoughtful at what I say, because also with that, I'm just like rambling. Sometimes I say some things that I don't mean to say. So, or, I may use the wrong word choice. So I take my time, like when I'm trying to get something across. So I kind of like became a little bit discouraged when speaking. And so this has been a battle for me as well when it comes to being able to be more vocal on my YouTube channel, because I'm still coming over some fears. Like one of my major fears has been to publicly speak. I don't know like where that stems from, but that's discouraged me from speaking in general. Like I'm starting to notice it more so now than ever before. Probably like years prior to me like really getting to this point now, let's just say. I spoke, but then there, somewhere my voice was suppressed, and I'm not sure why. And I feel like one of the reasons in adulthood, because when I was younger, I just, used to talk a lot. When I was younger, I talked a lot and I rambled, and I was just talking and talking and talking. And ironically, it's not ironic, but my children are the same way. They just talk, just talk, just talk, just talk. So I don't know, somewhere in my adulthood, I just like felt very disempowered because of my voice. And I kind of like relating it to a situation that happened when, I felt like I was really reaching my peak. Like I saw myself expanding when it came to my life and my career. Yeah, that's crazy. And my career, just in life in general, at this time, I was probably like 25. Let's see. Quick math. This was probably like 2010. So I just like drew a blank. I was probably like 25 or something like that. Okay. Yeah. I was separated from my husband at the time, which I'm now divorced. And I just, like my mind, like I'm not going to allow this to cripple me at all. I'm about to do some power moves. Like, that was like at that time of my life, I can honestly say that, like, from that breakup, from that separation, I was like so empowered to like bounce back and bounce back hard. So, I had just had our daughter. I just had a child, my middle daughter. And like, while I was still on maternity leave, I manifested the opportunity to have a interview with, a medical office. Because at the time I had just, graduated from a medical assisting program, and I was just allowing that to be a stepping stone for me to get into the medical field and see what like, how I like it, because I always said I wanted to be a doctor or a nurse. So I just felt like that was a stepping stone. I like had my life planned out. Married. Me and my husband are powerful CEOs, like, we getting money. We're at the top of our, profession, living on a very abundant lifestyle. So when I saw that it didn't work out like that, and I felt like, he abandoned me and our daughter, I was like, I have to do this, like, I can't feel sorry for myself. I have to do this. Like, I still, the mission in my mind, the mission still has to be carried out. This is what I want for myself, so why not do it? And, I had my moments where, I cried about it and was angry, but I was more so optimistic than anything. And I manifested this interview with the dermatologist's office. This would have been my second position in the medical field, because even my first one came by luck, I would say. It was a blessing, because it was at a doctor office, like, while I was in school. I had to do an externship, and I chose a office closer to me, because where I stayed was a little ways from the inner city, and they allowed me to do my internship there. While I was there, I guess, me being me, there was a little bit of power struggles. There were a little bit of power struggles, and the office manager during my externship told me that I was a little bit standoffish. She said I was standoffish, and I said, huh, excuse me? I was like, I don't even see how she say that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't see it. So I was like, damn, that just blew my chances of working here. So I was like, I finished out strong though, my externship. And like, at the very end, the office manager, she was like, we're going to hire you. I couldn't even hear nothing else. I know she was like giving me praises, but I couldn't hear anything else. All I remember is her saying that they were going to hire me. And I was like, done. I was like, wow, really? Like, I was surprised. So, I mean, because, personality wise, I guess, I can be someone different, but, my work ethic always speaks for itself, and I am kind of standoffish. I only warm up to people who, I feel safe with. And if I see something about your character that's a little aggressive in a sense, I kind of like shut down. And I'm like that. That's just me. And that's because of my past experiences with aggressive behaviors. Like my dad was very aggressive, and that scared the crap out of me. I remember there was an incident when I was younger. First and foremost, I'm from Detroit. So, Detroit has a reputation for itself. And my dad being older, first and foremost, my dad was like 36 when I was born. So they had me middle age, which is, I just had the opportunity to experience, more mature parents. And I felt my dad's behavior was very terrifying because he felt like no one could touch him, or no one could say anything, or, he was aggressive. But I see also that's just like, some generational stuff that he hadn't dealt with, because I saw that, I witnessed that, my dad getting out of the car to cut someone out and said, was like they were making threats, and I'm like terrified. Like he hopped out of his truck, and it was a neighbor at that, just to go off. And I'm like, oh my God, they gonna shoot our house up. What are you doing? I'm like, Daddy, please don't. It was traumatic. That was a traumatic experience. So when people are aggressive, I just kind of observe you and just kind of like withdraw a little bit. So with that being said, I was so happy that she hired me. And I stayed there for a while. And while I was there, I was making major moves for myself. I met my husband, we married. That's another story. But we married, and we are had it planned. Like I said, I wanted to be a nurse, so my foot was in the door. I felt comfortable. I felt like that was something that I could do. So while I was at my first place, I became pregnant. And towards the end of my pregnancy, well, actually it wasn't towards the end. I had a very challenging pregnancy. So I kind of quit. I didn't quit, but resigned kind of early, and told them that I would get back with them. But I already had it in my mind that wasn't a place that I necessarily wanted to be. So I wanted to do better for myself and get paid a little bit more because of, I felt my expertise. Because I guess, if people can pin me down, I'm really good at what I do. It's just, the environment has to be okay for me to do it. And I made that decision for myself that I'm not going to do anything that I don't want to do in an environment that I can't do it. If you want to get the best from me, I'm going to have to be happy. I'm not one to fake that, so for real. So that's one reason why working for someone has never worked for me, and why I decided to, become an entrepreneur. But during my time when I was like breaking free, I wanted better for myself, and I started applying. And I remember applying for this job off of Craigslist. I was like getting myself prepared to get back in the work field. So I applied while still on maternity leave. And like, it was like towards the end of my maternity leave, they, this dermatologist office called me for an interview. And I was excited, nervous at the same time, checking the place out when I got there, just feeling the energy, not knowing that I was an empath, at the time. So I'm just like nervous, just like trying to stay calm around a whole bunch of people. Anxiety levels went up even more, but I managed to get through the interview process. And the office manager said that she would hire me. So I was excited, and she said that they was offering, $2 more than what I was making at the other office, and this was entry, so I was like, yeah, heck yeah, and it was full time. It was ideal for me at the time. I didn't know anything about dermatology. Wasn't necessarily one of the fields that I wanted to go in per se. Like I was, I didn't know too much about dermatology and wasn't really excited about it. I'm not going to say excited, but, interested in it. But it was an experience. So, I was hired to do medical office, front office. I felt like that was more so my groove with being in the medical field. I learned that from working at the other office because I was both front and back, and I was like the only one that did front and back. So, I decided that the front office was more my speed, and I did my best, I've always been complimented on my voice and the way that I speak a lot. So, I heard that at the other office. So this time I was just strictly answering phone calls and scheduling patients, and directing calls and things like that. So I was like more so a phone operator in the front office. And, I kind of like threatened a lot of people there because of the way that I carried myself. Once again, I kept to myself, and I did my work, and I, was very professional. And, sometimes people can be themselves, but I kind of like set myself aside, to stay focused and work, which was a part of myself. But it's, I guess that standoffish nature of mine, kind of became a conflict, even though I was doing my job. I wasn't mean or anything. I just didn't open up. I didn't share with people, about who I am or anything like that. And that, once again, that comes from, me having to heal this aspect of myself of not sharing who I am. So one day the office was crazy, and I felt at this particular time they were picking on me. You know how that is, they want to get you to leave type thing. because you're really good and they feel threatened. So the office manager wasn't doing anything and left me alone during a crazy time where it was, high volume, and expected for me to get to every call, that came through. And I did my best, and I gave each patient my, the best of me. Like, I didn't slack because of the call volume. I wasn't panicked. I wasn't rushing. I spoke nice and clear so everyone could hear me. And, each client or each patient got the same level of customer service. So I'm doing my job, doing me. And one of the owners, which is a doctor, came in, checking a system, and it had quieted down a little bit that day. It was the same day. So I leisurely answered the phone, how I always answered, and did what I did. And, I forgot what he asked me, or he was like, I like how you just handle that call. I was like, oh, thank you, And so I just left it alone. I was like, oh, that's what's up. The office manager, came in when everything cooled down. Like, did you handle it? I'm like, girl. Because, like prior to that, and it's crazy how everything aligns the way that it does. Like, when I did need her help at the time, well, it was crazy. She kind of like barked at me. Like, this is your job. This is what you should be able to do. You should be able to handle it. And I'm like, look, it don't have nothing to do with me. We just trying to get these calls answered. So I'm like, fuck it. And just, that's when I just did what I had to do. So, later that week, we had a meeting, and the doctor, his name was Dr. Singer, pointed me out, like put the spotlight on me, for doing what I was supposed to do. And he made sure to say, if you've ever worked with, this young lady here, the way that she answers the calls, I want you to start answering the phones like that, because a lot of the people there were a little bit unprofessional, just to be honest. I'm not trying to talk about my people. I'm from Detroit, so we all just got a little extraness to us. You hear how I'm talking? Like, they ain't answer the phone like that at these people's establishments, or just not answering the phones the way that they need to be answered, being the face of, someone else's practice. You know what I'm saying? So they were mad. They was big mad, because a lot of them didn't mess with me like that, because I just stuck to myself. It wasn't that I wasn't, the friendly one. It was just that, no one got the chance to get to know me, or, ask anything about me to try to get a better understanding, except one person that I work with. And me and her was cool, so she couldn't see, how I was being standoffish, and at the time, once again, I was going through something. If, you recall, like, during this time of my life, I was, going through a separation with my husband. I just had a baby, Like, I got hired a couple of days before the end of my maybe a week before the end of my maternity leave, and I had to show them that I went to the doctor. I had to give them some type of medical evidence. So I was going through a lot. Hormones changing, life changes. I, wanted to move. I'm like, how I'm going to do this? Had to pay for, childcare. I'm just trying to make sure that I'm doing what I had to do. So, this experience, also I was going to school as well. So I had a lot on my plate. So this really made me a target, and they technically had to let me go because of an error in my part, because of, during this time as well, with me being at the, I wouldn't say the peak, but things were going really, really well. I ended up being arrested. And I'm not really going to go into that story just yet. But your girl was arrested for assault. Okay? That's not funny. Or it's nothing to joke about, but somebody had to catch these hands. You hear me? Somebody had to get touched. You feel me? People had me all the way fucked up. We not gonna act like, ain't none of us ever been there. When somebody had got you all the way fucked up. You feel me? So, I went to jail, and because of that happening, I didn't want to tell anyone. I was so embarrassed, first and foremost, because that was so not me. But I was at a point was oh, you really trying to get me fucked up, so I'm gonna have to hurt you. Not necessarily trying to hurt you, but I'm act crazy. Oh, you got me messed up. So, I didn't tell my job, and I just was I'm sorry. I called in. I couldn't call in, so I had my mom call in for me and not really explaining what the situation was. And I think when it was already, at the point where I missed a few days, it was a couple of days, she said she had to, my office manager was happy to let me go, was happy. So that didn't stop me though, but that did kind of put a damper on, me equating that to my voice, that experience where I was kind of put in a spotlight for it. But then that's when all the hate started coming for real. Even though I wasn't that talkative, still people was every now and then say something, I say something, we have a little conversation, and then it just be that. But after that, when, the owner, put the spotlight on me and set me as the example, that's when the energy shifted for real, and people felt threatened, especially my office manager. When it came to her job, the front office manager. So they were happy to X me, and I felt that, and now when I speak, I'm almost afraid to speak. So these videos don't come quite as often as I would like. And like I said, I'm still in a releasing process when it comes to this spiritual cleansing that I'm going through. And, my limitations. I feel like this is like a real live example of some of the changes that you could possibly go through during the Kundalini awakening. Like, you'll constantly go through changes, to break free from limitations. So I kind of like equated that experience with kind of like putting a damper in my confidence when it came to speaking. Also, growing up, I had my dad he was just, my dad was different, like he used to yell at me for not speaking up because I used to speak very soft and I was quiet spoken. And he used to be like, speak up, goddamn it. Like, he was like, he was verbally abusive, He was like, and at times it would be funny, when we were at home, but when he used to yell at me in public, that's when it became very defeating, and it did a lot to my self-esteem growing up. And I feel like that's kind of like one reason why I have self-esteem issues even still to this day that I'm working through. But I kind of cower a little bit when it has a lot to do with my voice or being spoken to any type of way or any type of aggressive behavior. It kind of like puts a damper in my voice, so I'm kind of like coming out of a phase in my life where I feel, there's been a complete breakdown of who I thought I was and how strong I was and how I was placing my strengths, like how I was protecting myself. Like, it was like a really tumultuous breakdown in my life where it just really hit my confidence, even in myself, in my ability to, really go after life the way that I wanted to. But I think it was more so a redirection, because I wasn't going down the right path or what was really for my, best life, I'm assuming. The medical field wasn't for me. Because now I'm more so a spiritual practitioner, and I'm seeing how very important it is to use my voice. But I'm still working through these things. I'm still working through using my voice, trying to speak clearly. I at one point developed a stutter because I'd be so nervous to speak. Like I kind of grew a nervousness to speak, afraid to say the wrong thing or just afraid of people's judgments. So I ended up stuttering. I still do sometimes, when I'm nervous. But like I said, I'm really working through these things. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I didn't think to make this long, but it is. So we're gonna end it here.